If you've done any sort of content marketing for your business, then you probably know that it's not as easy as just putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. Very soon into your content marketing journey, you'll be confronted with these different obstacles, like you may not know what to talk about, or you may not have enough time to do any content marketing. Maybe your audience isn't engaging with you. Unfortunately, content marketing is not as simple and easy as we would like it to be. Which means not everybody is a great success, but I think that you do have the capacity to be a great success in your content marketing. In this episode, I'm going to define 6 habits of content creators who are successful in their content marketing. I know that successful is somewhat of a subjective term because success is different for each person. So I'm also going to define what successful content marketing means to me and how it applies to you. This is Unforgettable Online Marketing, and I am your host, Tara Wilder. On this show, we share practical online marketing tips and strategies for virtual business owners like yourself, so you can grow an online presence that attracts your ideal client, engages them, nurtures a relationship with them, and converts them into leads and paying clients. If you don't know already, we have a Facebook group called the Unforgettable Entrepreneur Society that I really encourage you to join. I'm creating this content for you, and I love engaging with the community. So if you would like to join in on the fun, just go to Facebook and search for Unforgettable Entrepreneur Society, or you can go to the show notes and there's a link there as well. It's unforgettableonlinemarketing.com/17. Before I get into the 6 habits of successful content creators, I want to first define what successful means to me in the context of this episode. Because like I said, success is subjective, but I think all of these characteristics of success apply to you and your content marketing as well. First, you have to be clear on what your goal is. Is it to build an audience of new people? Is it to engage your current audience? Maybe you want to build your online credibility. Whatever it is, you have to be clear on what your goal is. Then, of course, the next step after that is to make sure that your content is actually moving you towards that goal. So if you have a goal, you're content marketing, publishing content out there, and you're not getting the results that you want, then I wouldn't say that that's really moving towards your goal. Of course, your content has to be on topic. It has to be relevant to your industry. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't post things that are off topic. For example, with coaches and consultants with personal brands, yes, you are a personal brand, you can and should be posting some aspects of your personal life. For me, one of my goals with my content marketing is to engage a relationship and nurture a relationship with my audience. So I do post some things about my personal life so they can get to know me even better and feel a connection to me. But the bulk of my online presence is about online business and online marketing. And finally, content marketing is a success when your audience is engaging with what you're posting out there. To me, those are the essential characteristics of successful content marketing, and I think that that applies to all of you. The first habit is to get into the habit of seeing content inspiration in your everyday life anywhere you look, because you're constantly having conversations that have to do with what you teach or what you do in your business. I'm talking to clients and prospects and people in my network all day, every day. So what are the topics that come up for you in those conversations? What are the gems that you're giving to other people? What are the questions that they're asking? These are all content ideas. Just make sure that you record them. More on that in a minute, but these are all ideas. I specifically want you to pay attention to the conversations that you have with leads, prospects, or your clients, past or current clients. Pay attention to what they're asking you about and what they're interested in, because the logic is if they are all interested in these topics, then other leads that you haven't met yet, or people that you're trying to attract, the right people you're trying to attract into your circle, will be interested in those things. So why not create content around those things, those topics? A lot of times when I'm on the phone with a client, they'll be telling me about their day or their beliefs or work that they've been doing with their clients, and they'll just say this gem. They'll just say something brilliant, and I'll be like, oh, I really care about what you're saying, but I want to tell you you that that is a perfect idea for a blog post or a video, and they didn't even realize it. It's really a muscle that you're trying to build. It may be a little challenging at first, but it's a muscle, and I want you to get into the habit of noticing things around you. It's just really just paying attention. And by the way, there will be things that happen to you in your daily life that may not seem like they're directly related to your business or your marketing, but it's still something that you can use. Think about like stories and experiences that you have and how you can draw a parallel to the lessons that you're trying to teach in your content marketing. For example, I also teach piano because I just really, really love teaching piano, or I love playing piano and music in general. So I like to teach, and I have a few students. And I could tell a story about how one of my students really struggled to learn a particular piece and the different obstacles that he came across, mindset issues, things like that, and how he overcame them, and how this can apply to you and your online marketing, for example. So an experience that I have teaching a 10-year-old piano is something that I can tie into online marketing. That's habit number 1. Get into the habit of seeing content inspiration in your everyday life. Habit number 2 is to brain dump your ideas constantly. So whether you are cooking or you're talking to a client, whatever, I'm sure inspiration hits you. And I want you to record that idea immediately. Even if you're not sitting there creating content in that moment, record the idea. I want you to be organized with this too, because it's going to help you down the road. Pick one place where you're going to write all of your content ideas before you organize them and start creating them. For example, I have a Google Doc that I use. Whenever I have an idea, I just open up that doc and I plug it in there. And I really like this method because it's cloud-based, which means that I can access it from any device. I have 2 computers and a phone, and I sometimes use my tablet too. So depending on where I'm at and what device I have in front of me, I can pull up that exact same doc and record my idea there. It's really important for you to be organized, because if your ideas are all over the place, then you may struggle to find those ideas when you're sitting down and creating content, which can make the content creation process so much more frustrating and inefficient as well. I basically run my entire business off my Google Drive, so it makes sense for that brain dump document to be with all of my other content and marketing materials. If you don't want to use Google Drive, then you can use something like Evernote or the Notepad app on your phone, or you can just write your ideas down like physically into a notebook. Whatever it is you use, make sure that you just stick to that one system, and that's where all of your ideas go so that you're most efficient when you are creating your content. The third thing I want you to do is create a system and stick with it. I know a lot of you listening are creatives or intuitives that really don't like systems, but listen, if you want to be successful in content marketing, you have to have a system. Now, of course, you can still go with the flow when you have a hit of inspiration. Go and create as much as you can and bank it. So those days when you don't have inspiration, you can pull from that bank. I do believe that you can create a space in which you become inspired and motivated even when you're not feeling it in the moment, but that's a topic for a whole nother podcast episode. Your system needs to have 3 major components to it. First, you need to know when and where you're going to plan your content and then create it. Then you need to know when and where you're going to publish your content. And finally, you need a system for going and analyzing the data consistently. That last piece is really, really important, because I don't see a lot of entrepreneurs actually going and looking at the data, the analytics, and seeing how their content is performing. That's really, really important. So your system needs to also have that in place as well. There is a ridiculously endless amount of content creation systems out there. Every marketer has their own way of doing things. I have my own way of doing things. The reason for that is because every person is very different in how they work creatively and in their businesses. So yes, go and do your research and see what kinds of systems there are out there. And by the way, I don't mean like specifically tools, although tools are important. I mean like your processes for how you do things. Go and see what other people are doing and see what pieces of their systems you can use to create your own system. It doesn't need to be complicated, so don't spend too much time trying to create something. Keep it simple. There are 2 episodes of Unforgettable Online Marketing that I really encourage you listen to or watch. The first is episode 4 with Jennifer Wegman, which is all about how to use content libraries to create more content in less time. The second episode is actually coming out next week, so depending on when you're listening to this or watching this, it may or may not have been published already. But it's episode number 18 with Crystal Statsky, and she shares with us her system of using themes and categories to streamline your content creation process. Again, those are episodes 4 and 18, and I'll put a link to those episodes in the show notes too. The 4th habit is to create content every single day. This is inspired by Jerry Seinfeld, one of the greatest content creators of our time. Even if his humor doesn't really appeal to you, it's true, though, still, that he's a content creating machine, and his stand-up and his show, the show that he co-created, appeals to millions and millions of people out there. A young comedian once asked Jerry what tips he had for new comedians, and Jerry said that to be a better comic, you have to create better jokes, and to create better jokes, you have to write every single day. First, by creating every day, you are staying consistent. So you're building that consistency muscle that is so, so important for you to be successful in your marketing and in your business. What you're creating doesn't have to be publishable. You just have to be in the habit of making something. And over time, as you're creating and publishing, it's not that all of these pieces of content shouldn't see the light of day, but as you're creating and publishing and getting feedback, you will get better and better, of course. So create content every day. It doesn't all have to be publishable, but at least stay in the habit of creating, build that muscle, publish some of the content, get some feedback, and you will build that consistency muscle and get better at your content marketing. Number 5 is to be willing to be imperfect. If you focus on or obsess about perfection too much, then you'll end up paralyzed and you won't publish anything, and then there's no use, right? I mean, there's no purpose to all of this, right? So you need to be willing to be imperfect. Now, I don't say that to say that the things that you should be publishing should be low quality. Absolutely not. You should be concerned with high quality, or making sure your content is of high quality. But don't be obsessive about making sure it's perfect, because otherwise it's never going to get out there. Take this episode, for example. I have a decent mic, but it's definitely not to the quality of big podcasters like Amy Porterfield or Pat Flynn, but it gets the job done. I think it's good enough. I did put thought into making sure that the mic that I got was of high quality, but I don't really have a sound studio like they do, or the mics that they have that cost hundreds or thousands of dollars. Honestly, I don't think they have mics that cost thousands of dollars. But anyway, they do have good equipment and they have a good sound room. And I have put some thought into it, of course, but it's not to the level that they are at. So I'm willing to be imperfect in order to get in front of you and give you this content, because I believe that what I'm giving you is important and you need it in order to be successful. And what you have to give to your audience is important in order for them to be successful. So yes, put time and effort and thought into the quality of what you're producing, but don't go overboard to over analyzing it and trying to be overly perfect to the point where you're paralyzed and you're not doing anything at all. And by the way, you're going to learn a lot about the imperfect content that you put out there. For example, I was on a podcast, I was being interviewed on a podcast a long time ago, and I was using a decent mic, and the host did tell me that the mic was good. He asked me what it was, and he said that that's the one that he started with too. And he gave me a tip on how I could improve the sound quality, and it was to put the mic inside of a box so that a padded box, so there would be less echo or just less noise around the mic. I mean, it was this whole thing. I'm not going to go into it right now, but the point is I put out imperfect content out there and I learned from it. And finally, You have to get into the habit of paying attention to your audience and how they're behaving. I talked about this really briefly earlier when we were talking about your system of content marketing. You have to pay attention to your audience and how they're behaving and the data that you're collecting. You could be creating the best content in the world, you could be creating the worst content in the world, and you wouldn't know it if you're not paying attention to how they're responding to what you're publishing. Pay attention to the data you're collecting, and I want you to look at it consistently, not just once and then don't look at it again for like months and months. I recommend at least looking at it on a weekly basis. There's a lot of different metrics that you could be looking at depending on the platform, so I can't really go into what metrics to look at in this episode. But what I recommend is, if it's overwhelming to you, because there are a lot of different data points you can be looking at, if it looks overwhelming to you, just pick a handful of the most important ones to look at and pay attention to those. And then as you get more advanced in your content marketing, then you can start looking at the other metrics. But you know me, I'm really big on making things step by step, simple. Start small, then get big. Like I said, there are a lot of different platforms, so I can't really recommend which metrics you should at the very least be paying attention to, but I think at the very least you should be paying attention to how many people saw it and how many of them engaged with it. And examples of engagement could be liking it or commenting or sharing. And this isn't just social media, but it could be your blog. Commenting could be like replying to the email for email marketing. So how many people looked at it and how many people took some sort of action with it? That's what I have for you today. 6 habits that content creators need to be in order to be successful. First, you need to look for content inspiration anywhere in your daily life. You need to brain dump your content ideas into one spot consistently. Have a content marketing system that works for you and stick to it. Create content every single day to exercise that muscle. Be willing to be imperfect. And finally, pay attention to your audience and see how they're responding to it. I'm really excited about next week's episode because it ties into this week's episode so well. It's episode number 18 with Crystal Statsky, and she goes over her system of themes and categories and how she uses it for herself and for her clients to streamline their content marketing. I will see you next time on Unforgettable Online Marketing.